Will the second city be the second city to witness President Trump's crime crackdown? Well, joining me now is my friend and Republican strategist and co-founder of South and Hill Strategies. It's Colin Reed. He's back for another round, and I'm happy to have him on Perino on Politics. This is where I call up my smart friends and I get briefed on what I need to know about the state of American politics. Last week, Colin, I had Matt Whitlock, and it might have gone on a little longer than usual because I needed to be caught up on so much after the Labor Day weekend and Congress coming back to town. I said, oh, this is why I have this podcast, because I call my friends and I'm like, wait, what do I need to know? And then it really sustains me through the week. So thanks for being here again.
No problem, Dana. I'm happy to do my part to level it off if we want to keep things short today.
Let's start off talking about crime. It's on a lot of people's minds. And one thing that I believe is that while President Trump is shining a light on crime nationwide, there are some Democrats, many Democrats, who are resistant and saying, no, that's not true. Statistics show crime is down. And so it's like the Democrats have a crime perception problem, whereas most of the country is saying, no, we have a crime problem. I just played a clip from Don Lemon's YouTube show in which he goes out on the street in Baltimore and interviews people. And there's this one guy who says, do you want the National Guard here? And the guy says, yeah, I don't think it could hurt. I mean, we need help. And he says, is crime bad? It's like, yeah, crime's terrible. And I wonder what you think about not only the merits of it, because you're there in D.C., but also the politics.
Well, let's start with the politics and then work backwards into the here and now. I mean, political history is littered with Democratic candidates who allowed themselves to be portrayed as weak. And that's inherently what a discussion on crime does. It makes one side look strong and one side look weak. You look at George McGovern in 1972, got his clock cleaned in 49 states by Richard Nixon, who was running on a law and order message. You look at Mike Dukakis in 1988, was leading in the polls until then Vice President George Bush came out and said that he basically allowed violent criminals into his neighborhood. And from there, George Bush went on a similar type political romp. Or even John Kerry in 2004. A different kind of weakness, but a weakness all the same. So I think this smart Democratic politicians should be, at least, and maybe early signs based on some of their responses, aware of the peril that awaits them if they allow themselves to get framed into the category of saying, nothing's wrong, nothing to see here, what Trump's doing is outrageous, and you should come side with us. You saw over the weekend and over recent weeks, Gavin Newsom out in California, Wes Moore up the street in Baltimore and Maryland, at least saying they're essentially deploying their own law enforcement, which they're saying, well, we're not going to do it Trump's way, but we're at least going to do it our own way. And at least they're doing something. And frankly, that's probably good for the people that they represent in the cities, the communities. And it's also good for President Trump politically because it allows him to continually drive the baseline, if you will, of what people are responding to. And these Democrats, even the ones who want to see themselves, wake up every morning and look in the mirror and see a president, even they are still responding every day to what Donald Trump's doing. And until they can kind of figure out how to play their own tune, they're just going to be a few steps behind. Because if you give people a choice between someone who's projecting strength and someone who's projecting strength light, it's not a hard choice.
It's interesting that that historical perspective is so helpful. And thinking back, I was there for the 2004 reelect, and John Kerry, yes, seemed weak on the war on terror. And that was a difference maker. It's interesting, too, that the media plays a role here. Of course, we've been covering at Fox News this story of a horrible story out of Charlotte, North Carolina, where a young Ukrainian refugee, she's 22 years old, Irina Zarutska is her name, and she was stabbed in the neck from behind by a career criminal, somebody who had been arrested so many times, and she lost her life. There's not a lot of media coverage of it. Now, the mayor of the city had written a statement saying thank you to the media for not talking about this because it respects her family. Now, I don't know. Maybe the family asked for it not to be. I'm not sure about that. But if you think about the difference in the coverage of George Floyd, for example, or the Daniel Penny case here in New York City, my colleague Greg Gutfeld did an analysis with Grok over the weekend on the number of times the media would have played the clips of all of those things versus the ones with the Irina situation. In fact, at the New York Times, if you type in Daniel Penny, you get 100 possibilities of things you can click on. You click on this young woman's name, you had 0. Maybe that will change by the end of the day, by the time you listen to this, everybody. And so I'm just thinking about the media's role in this, too. And maybe, once again, the Democrats are not helped by a media who coddles them.
That's right. And we've talked about before how some of these Democratic operatives who go on to the private sector, it's just an entirely different universe when the media doesn't agree with you on 90 to 95% of the issues that you're pushing. But on the issue of crime, the old saying in politics, it's not what you say, it's what people hear. And how people feel about crime is something that frankly, even here in D.C., you talk to certain Democratic operatives and they'll be pretty candid with you about some of the challenges this city faces in really nice parts of D.C., places where you're getting $26 glasses of wine and you're getting really nice meals, and then you're having to leave and wonder about if you can walk home a couple of blocks. And that's been something that's been a pervasive challenge for a few years. And now I think if people are being honest and willing to let put their partisan stripes down, they'll say the city feels a little bit safer than it did a few weeks ago. Of course, there's a 30-day period. DC is a federal jurisdiction, so it's different than other cities. I got all the Democrat talking points on that. But the other thing that's been interesting here in D.C. is watching both the mayor, Muriel Bowser, the Democratic mayor, and the Washington Post editorial board, safe to say neither are fans of President Trump, come out and criticize those who have just been knee-jerk partisan opponents of everything he's done and everything he's trying to do here as it relates to crime. And Muriel Bowser, of all people, has every political incentive in the world to be out there and screaming bloody murder about what's happening, because this city went 93-7 for Vice President Harris last week. So more than 9 in 10 voters in the district voted for Kamala Harris. And her only real political peril lies from her left flank. It's not like the Republicans ever going to knock her off. And she, of all people, is out there. And frankly, she's doing so not quietly, but she's making it pretty clear that this has not been something that she's wholly opposed to. And the furor has died down a bit. Now we'll see how that translates to other cities and other states. And you've got Governor Pritzker, who clearly wants to run for the White House, and Governor Newsom, Governor Moore, et cetera, and they're going to have to deal with these issues. But ultimately, if you've got a population, if you've got voters who do not feel safe in the places they live, work, and play, they're not going to vote for the people in charge, no matter who's in charge, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. On
that issue of perception, it's about how people feel, not like killing people with numbers. Like, Democrats love to just flood you with statistics, and it's not persuasive. It reminds me of the debate with the issue of inflation during the Biden administration. Remember, the Biden administration initially was like, oh, inflation's not happening. Inflation's a high-class problem. And inflation was so real, and they were ignoring it. Is that a fair comparison?
Well, it is, and they just sound like they're just academics, eggheads in some think tank cranking out policy papers. And it's like, guys, wake up, go touch grass, go see what's happening in the community. You'll get a different sense of it. So they are, but I mean, look, they're the ones that are honest will be clear-eyed about it. But ultimately, this is a challenge that it extends beyond Washington, D.C. And honestly, we've spent the better part of now 6 weeks at the national discussion talking about crime, and that's not an issue, and safety, and that's not an issue that's ever going to cut in the Democrats' favor. And that's also helpful to the president and the Republicans writ large.
So I want to talk to you about another issue, and that is a little bit of focus now post-Labor Day about the New York City mayor's race, which might be head-scratching for people across the country. Why should we care? I truly think people should care because the Mamdanis of the world, the Democratic Socialist, or as President Trump calls them, what does he call him? Mom Commie, I think is what he calls him. There's been a push from Bernie Sanders, also socialist, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't know if she calls herself a socialist, but she certainly acts like one. They've been calling on the rest of the Democrats in New York and the Democratic leadership writ large to support Mamdani. And right now, Hakeem Jeffries in the House and Chuck Schumer in the Senate, those are the two leading Democrats. They're both from New York on Capitol Hill. And then you have Governor Hochul here in New York. They've not connected themselves yet to Mamdani. Do you think they will? Do you think they should? Or do you think that they will hold strong and try to put some distance and see what they can do to try to preserve themselves and also other Democrats across the country.
I mean, the bitter irony for the Democrats, who I noted today, a Washington Post news story is even calling them, quote, leaderless in their news coverage. So that shows you how they've fallen. The irony for the Democrats is usually the political canaries in the coal mine in the year of a president's first term are the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. And right now, the Democratic candidates in both of those states, they've got fairly healthy leads. Anything can happen. My point is, no one's really talking about those two, Abigail Spanberger in Virginia or Mikey Sherrill up in New Jersey, because Mr. Mamdani dominates the conversation. And it's just so telling of where the party is. And that event over the weekend with Senator Sanders and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Mr. Mamdani, they weren't. I mean, there was some ads in there for Republican ad makers that you'll see. My suspicion is you'll see between now and the midterms. Bernie Sanders called him the future of the Democratic Party. He said people should be jumping up and down to support Mr. Mamdani. You can bet there's a bunch of Democrats in less blue parts of the states who are putting their heads in the sand and hoping that just goes away. And that's kind of the challenge. Is this guy is unfortunately appears poised for your city, appears poised to become the next mayor. That's a bad thing long term, to have the epicenter of capitalism and free enterprise fall into the hands of an avowed communist. Not a good thing for America. Not a good thing for the world. I hope it doesn't happen. Hopefully they figure it out, but that's what happens when you nominate two irredeemable candidates, and Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams, different story. But when Mr. Mamdani wins, he's going to be the center of all this media attention and gravity. And look, give the devil his due. At least they're putting forward some ideas. They may be wrong ideas. They may be extreme ideas. They may want to talk about government running grocery stores. But when you give people the alternative between something and nothing, it's not that hard a choice.
But on the grocery stores front, there was an exchange with him this weekend with a reporter saying, for example, in Kansas City, the free grocery store failed. And he said, oh, but mine would work.
I know.
That's just not believable.
Don't worry about what's happened in the past and all the failures of communism. I got it figured out. It's on me, guys. I mean, I noted that one of the only policy proposals Vice President Harris put forward in her 107-day campaign, remember this, Dana? It was price gouging, quote unquote, cracking down on price gouging on grocery stores. So that didn't really work out very well. It was widely panned, and now we're back to having a discussion about government intervention of grocery stores. That's how far we've gotten.
That's so interesting. And also, you made a point here about, I forgot about this, that the Biden administration blocked that big merger between Albertsons and Kroger's. And it's because partly the reason they wanted to merge is that their margins are so small and they're trying to figure out a way to keep in business.
Well, and those two, I think it's something like 13% between the Kroger's and Albertsons. If you combine them, 13% of the market share. The Biden administration, in all their infinite wisdom, viewed that as too much consolidated power, and they blocked it. And they said, the two grocery stores said, we're doing this so we can lower prices. Yes, it's extremely tight margins. There was a big story in the Journal last week on Aldi's and the growth they've made. They're America's fastest growing retailer. I don't know if you've ever been to an Aldi's. It's quite a trip going those aisles, and they keep their margins low because they keep down the frills. Anyway, innovation, competition, more options. That's what drives prices down, not the long arm of government.
Do you know where I went to an Aldi's quite a bit was when I lived in the UK with Peter.
Interesting.
And so now it's interesting to see them grow here. How do you think people are perceiving the economy right now? Because I feel like there's a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of kind of a wait and see mode on the economy. But housing prices are tough. Gas prices are down. Jobs have slowed. It just kind of feels like a curious time of wait and see.
And of course, there's the big unknown of what's going to happen with the court and the tariffs and the fallout from that. I mean, the Trump administration has been pretty clear about how they view that threat in terms of its potential impact on the economy, and
which they say it's not going to be a negative. They say it's going to help.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the Treasury Secretary was out on TV pointing out GDP is rising above estimates. The stock market's hit all-time highs. Unemployment's fairly low. I mean, this week there's the big inflation report. during the Biden years, everyone was always waiting on pins and needles to see how that was going to result. Now it kind of just flies by the wayside. Inflation has been trickling up a little bit in the wrong direction in recent months. Hopefully that's not the case this month, and hopefully there's the big meeting of the Federal Reserve on September 17th. So that'll be heavily scrutinized and watched, because I think one of the reasons people feel so stuck economically right now is just the high interest rates, and President Trump's been pretty clear where he views that, and inflation coming down, and hopefully a rate cut in the interest rates might help shake some of this uncertainty loose.
Colin, it's the second week of September, and we are already talking about the midterms of next year. Let's talk about midterms, and then we'll talk about 2028. Midterms, how do you see things shaping up? I don't know if I need to repeat here, but because we keep this podcast at a 30,000-foot level, usually whoever runs the White House, whichever party is in the White House, they will usually lose seats in the midterm. History has defied a few times, but it's very uncommon. But this time, I don't know. The Democrats feel like, to me, they seem in such disarray. And the Washington Post editorial board calling them leaderless. Maybe that won't matter. Maybe they'll do very well. I don't know. How do you seize it?
That was their news coverage, Dana, not to correct you. Not even the editorial board. That was a reporter calling them leaders.
So that's actually even more. Something's happening at the Post.
Yeah.
What did I send you this weekend about the? Oh, when they said the Department of War is a better name than the Department of Defense, I was like, wow, the Washington Post is apparently coming around.
Yeah. Yikes. Look, the midterms, yes, they're going to be challenging. I think that they always are. Republicans knew that going into it. Nothing has really changed from that, except for this just continual sinking of the Democratic approval rating and the lack of a vision and any sort of credible alternative. And look, the House, that'll be a coin flip. There's not a lot of turf to fight over, so each of those seats will have plenty of battle-tested incumbents having to fend off. But they've done this time and time again in the Trump era. And then in the Senate, the map, it gets fairly unpredictable. I mean, it continues to change with incumbents retiring, with defeated members like former Senator Sherrod Brown in Ohio coming back into the race.
Yeah, can we talk about Ohio for a second? Why would Sherrod Brown want to do? Is there literally no other Democrat in Ohio that could win statewide?
I mean, the guy's been in elected office since the 1970s, so I guess it's a hard habit to kick. But look, he's as good as they're going to get in a deep red state like that. He won statewide 3 times. He consistently outperformed the abysmal state of his party, but you can only outrun and undertow that strong by so far. And but look, it forces the Republicans to at least think about it. And we talked about what happened in North Carolina. There was that terrible incident over the weekend in Charlotte. I suspect, my strong suspicion is at some point you're going to see the issue of that tragedy play out in the Senate race, especially as a Democratic candidate, former Governor Roy Cooper. He was governor for 8 years, so my strong suspicion is his record on crime is in for some heavy scrutiny.
Can we talk about how Senator John Thune, who runs the Republicans in the Senate, how surprised do you think he was that Joni Ernst of Iowa decided not to run? And that's going to be an expensive race.
Yeah, I mean, look, Joni Ernst was part of that 2014 class that brought in Tom Tillis, Tom Cotton, Dan Sullivan. It was a real rock star class. It was the second half of the Obama midterm. People were fed up with what was happening in this country, and 6 Republican senators got elected and have done great things. The country's better off for all their service, including Senator Ernst, first female combat service veteran to serve, and the first woman member of Congress from Iowa. Everyone in Iowa is better off, and the country's better off for her service. Look, Iowa's one of those states that swung really red really fast. President Trump's margin of victory has increased each time. Remember that Des Moines Register poll that came out last year in October? Kamala Harris is going to win by 3, and then I think Trump won by 14. So it's going to be really challenging for the Democrats to put this state on the map. But anytime you're losing an incumbent, an open race, the good news for the Republicans is it appears they've mobilized to run a really strong, formidable challenger in Ashley Hinson. Democrats, as they are wont to do, will probably have a messy, divisive, expensive primary and end up nominating someone that's completely out to lunch for the people of the state. Well,
I'm going to pay attention to that and all of those races. can we talk about 2028? I saw somebody tagged me in a post over the weekend that said, "See, Dana, Gavin Newsom's numbers went up." And I was like, yeah, but am I missing something here on the Gavin Newsom front?
Well, no. I mean, look, Governor Newsom, I'll give the credit. He's pretty clear about his intentions. At least give him credit for that. I mean, I saw Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, we talked about earlier. He was out over the weekend on TV saying he's definitely very Sherman-esque statement about not running for president. And I mean, that's we've seen with former Senator Barack Obama and others how little that means. Look, this is kind of the challenge. Like, into a vacuum, Newsom is at least stepping, and I think there's a lot of people who are really comfortable with the idea that the Democratic Party would nominate someone who's presided over the state with the highest taxes, the highest cost of living, highest energy prices, and someone who's got a record that they can that is worthy of scrutiny. So. We shall see. The other one to watch, of course, is Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania. He was one that just missed a short list last time around. His problem is he's got a tough reelect coming up potentially in a Trump state. So he can't be out there all day just as a Twitter troll the way Governor Newsom can.
Wait, when's his election?
Next year.
26? Oh, yes. So he could do a George W. Bush if he were to win and then he serve 2 years and then run, or serve a year and then run for president. That would be a reach. Yeah.
And there's a lot of miles to go between now and then, but Pennsylvania's one of those states. There's just no path for the Democrats without Pennsylvania. So we'll see. And then look, they're already doing polls up in New Hampshire. So this thing is on in terms of the presidential race, and it was a colossal traffic jam on the Democratic side in terms of candidates. But then on the Republican side, Vice President Vance way out in front. So that's kind of an indicator of where things are going on the Republican side.
My last thing on this is that I didn't realize that Bernie Sanders, who was a presidential candidate for the Democrats, and Kamala Harris, who then, of course, after the switcheroo, she was a candidate who lost. They have books that are coming out at the same time.
Should be electric.
So that's going to be great because that he doesn't have great things to say.
No, look, Bernie Sanders, I think, will be 87 by the time of the next presidential race. Not only did he win in New Hampshire, though, and I go back to New Hampshire because I'm biased because that's my part of the world, but he won going away in that Democratic primary up there. Like, he was early on, like he was the guy, and it was only by the fact they were able to rally everyone around Joe Biden, and they slowed him down there. So. Never say never with Bernie Sanders. He certainly hasn't lost his fastball. I'm
going to ask you what I'm missing, but I also just want to point out to everybody that it must be interesting for you as you get ready to become a first-time father to talk about these issues. And do you have like an Instagram filter now? It's like, I'm going to be a dad, so you think about these things differently?
Well, no. First of all, I'm just glad that our baby girl didn't arrive in this world before this podcast.
Me too.
I was a little nervous when I accepted it, so hopefully this is a sign of flexibility.
What is the due date? The 21st?
The 23rd.
Okay.
So hopefully this is a sign of cooperation and flexibility throughout childhood. Ask me in a couple of months. No, I'm enjoying it, and I think this will all kind of click in once I get a chance to meet her.
I can't wait to meet her too. I'm so excited for you. But what else do you think I could be missing? What do you pay attention to at this point in politics?
I mean, this is maybe not something you're missing, but you have pointed it out in some of your observations as well. I mean, Governor Newsom, he still is presiding over the country's most populous state of 40 million people. And as he's very, very focused on hurling social media venom at the President Trump is dismantling some of his keynote objectives and policy goals in California. I mean, it didn't get a ton of fanfare, but this summer Congress passed, President Trump signed a bipartisan, not just Republicans, but Democrats, repeal of Governor Newsom's EV mandates. And we don't talk as much about EVs anymore because the Biden administration is gone and is not forcing us all to drive them. But because of this idiosyncrasy in California's law, they basically had the idea to take what they were doing and export it to a bunch of different other states. Congress got involved. The president signed it. And thankfully, those 11 states are not going to be forced to buy an electric vehicle in less than 10 years. My point is, Donald Trump may have the last laugh in many different regards, because he may have just from his here in D.C. been able to kind of unwind a lot of what Newsom's been trying to do in Sacramento.
Yeah, that is a curious situation. I mean, I guess we talked a little bit about EVs and batteries over the weekend after the South Korean, migrants, immigrants, workers, the people that were working at that EV plant in Georgia. There was 475 of them arrested by ICE. This is South Korea, who said that they would invest in America, which is what President Trump wanted. And I guess they brought in workers to try to fulfill that commitment, but they were not necessarily legal. And now there's diplomatic issues, and then the South Koreans have to send a plane so that all of these people can be flown back to South Korea. That felt very messy to me, and I almost feel like it could have been handled in a better way. I understand that if they were here illegally, I understand. However, if you're asking the country to please invest in America, then maybe you could have at least called them and said, guys, do you have illegal people working there? And if so, we need to fix that, and we want you to train Americans. I don't know. I'm watching that one with a critical eye.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the EV debate unfolds as the Trump administration pulls back a lot of the taxpayer giveaways and incentives to force people into them. I mean, Ford is expected to lose $5.5 billion on their EV production this year. General Motors is moving back after years of being pro-EV, is moving back in the other direction. I think the issue with EVs was always like, let people choose what they want to drive. If they want to drive EVs, great, but don't force them to. And I don't know, in 20 years from now, will EVs be a part of life, or will they be like new Coke and just something that's kind of stat and just...
We have a little Moke EV that we have down at the beach house. And the thing is that, first of all, the battery falters all the time. It's like, what's going on with this thing? It's not reliable. And I kind of understand that. But also, guess what else you can get? The same thing as the other problem. This flat tire. This flat tire has ruined my last 2 weekends. I can't drive it because you got to have a special thing, and then blah, 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 blah.
But at least you're not relying on that electric vehicle if, God forbid, you were ever down there and inclement weather was headed your way.
That's right. And you got to think about that, because baby girl Reed is going to be here before we know it.
She'll be riding around in the back of a Bronco. She won't be in an EV.
All right. Colin Reed, thank you so much. It's always good to have you.
Thank you, Dana.